Welcome to Bring Out Your Badass Self, a movement to break your negative thoughts and habits and instead focus on building each other up and encouraging fearless authenticity.
Each week, we will get vulnerable and share experiences alongside our guests and audience. Come rediscover your inner badass self.
Good morning, fellow badasses. Welcome. It is 12/12. So today is December 12th, and it is almost Christmas time. So is everyone ready? I don't know. I have to take a look at everyone. I feel like I've been trying to make sure that I have not forgotten anybody. I don't feel like I'm quite ready for Christmas. My husband the other day was talking about the fact that we have not decorated. And we actually have older kids. So we have a 15-year-old now, we have a 17-year-old, and then the 31-year-old with her husband. She just got married, and they're all coming over. And then my husband's sister is coming, but we haven't done any decorations. And he was like, "Do we need to do decorations?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I don't feel like it." Because I don't want to. It's really it's not necessarily the putting up the decorations, but it's the taking down of the decorations that we just all do not want to do. And so I was like, you know what if we didn't do it? I actually was debating on just buying this dress that had like a Christmas tree on it, and I would be like, all right, here's the Christmas tree. So this is the decoration. So I don't know whether we will succumb to peer pressure or not, or one of our kids going, "Hey, we just need a Christmas tree," or we just need, something. So I don't know. We will see as Christmas comes, but I'm curious, how is your Christmas going in preparation for it? And let me know also that you are here. I did also notice that we had some new individuals that look like they had signed up. So I'm excited to see if those individuals also joined today. So let us know that you're here. Say hello. We have a great show for you today. We are going to be continuing our conversation on the law of compensation, which tells us you get back what you put out in abundance. And really, the law is simple. You get back what you broadcast amplified. And if you keep score, you stay small. So it's about giving freely, and that is when you will really grow wildly. And so last week we talked about how this law pays you in proportion to your value, not your demands. And really, if you put out crumbs, you expect crumbs. Pour out value and expect overflow. And this law doesn't really care about your excuses. It mirrors your output. And today we'll be exploring how your returns rise when you deliver without expectation. And so I do see that Miss Kim is here. So hello, Miss Kim. I see some other people on as well. So please let me know that you are here and say hello. So Miss Kim says, good morning to one of my favorite, amazing, badass chicas. So good morning, Kim. It's great to see you. And are you ready for Christmas? So that's what I was asking people at the beginning. Do you have all of those presents that you have need for friends and family? And then I've also been hearing from some of my other friends that they're doing no Christmas per se. So they're not buying gifts for their family. What they're doing is they're actually buying gifts for other people. So people in need. And I just really loved that, especially as kids are getting older, really helping them to understand that life isn't necessarily about the gifts. It's also about what you give, which is really what we're going to be talking about today. All right, so I have another individual. I'm not sure. I'm waiting for it to pop up over on my other screen. Looks like Megan. Megan says, oh, I so need to be here for this law in particular. Thank you so very much, as always, Sarah. So Megan, thank you so much for joining us today. It's definitely going to be a great topic that we're going to be discussing. So please let me know that you are here. So I know that I see a lot more people on, and maybe you're lurkers, and that's okay too. And maybe you're watching after the fact. That's great as well. And so if you don't feel comfortable, I hope you still get value out of today's session or episode. Megan also said, yes, this is Megan. So grateful to be here. All right, we have Lisa. She says, happy Friday, badasses. So we definitely have a badass crew today, Lisa. So I think you'll enjoy it. Eric is joining us as well. He says, good, badass morning. So I'm so glad you're here, Eric. I know it's been a couple weeks or a few weeks since we've seen you. So glad that you are here with us for this topic. And then we have J Rose saying, a good morning, badass, on and off today, listening, multitasking. Awesome topic today. Sending love and sunshine to you and the listeners. So thank you for that, J Rose. Before I bring on our panelists, one of the things that I just wanted to ask is, one of the things that can help to push this message out to others is to add a comment, to like it. So right now, if you could like the actual, not just comments, I love comments, but also like the episode as well. That is one of the things that helps it to be found by others. Sharing it, if you're so inclined to do that, that would be great as well. All right, Lisa says, looking forward to this topic. And also saying, oh, there we are. And so it looks like that one came in twice. All right, so let's do this. I want to bring up our panelists. Let me take them off of mute and slide them up. Good morning.
Good morning.
So behind stage, we were talking about the fact that we are representing multiple time zones today. So Bryce, it is 7:07 your time. So you're over in Portland, right?
That's correct. Yep. Nice and early here this morning.
And then I'm actually on East Coast time, so it's 10:07 my time. And then even further is Heather. Heather is in the Netherlands, and it's 4:00 now p.m. your time.
Yes.
And so I love that.
The sun's not even up where I'm at, and it's about to set where you're at.
Yes, especially this time of year.
Well, I love that. I also follow Heather. I keep up with her on LinkedIn. We message each other, and she's constantly telling me the new places that she's going. And I love that. She's like, oh, I'm in Chile right now, or, oh, I'm, here or there. And I'm like, I'm just living vicariously through her, understanding where it is that she's traveling next. So let me do this. I would like to do sort of official introductions to both of you, and then have each of you give me a little bit more about you on the personal side. And so we have Bryce Crosby. He is product sales manager with Full Sail Partners. He oversees the account management team. He also oversees sales of Deltek Vantagepoint and works directly with clients to evaluate their needs and find the best fit solutions for clients. I also have Heather, who is president of Archer Estimating and Consulting, and their mission is to support civil construction and environmental remediation professionals with clarity, efficiency, and a smarter way forward for the industry. And so with that, Heather, I'd like to start with you. Can you give us just a little bit more of an introduction to you, of maybe a little bit more on the personal side as well, of who Heather is?
Ooh, who Heather is. Heather's all sorts of things. I guess probably the biggest one, since you mentioned it, is a slow traveler. Since we're able to be remote, we do move around quite a bit. We've been to 4, 5, 7 countries in the last year. Wow. And there are more on the list for next year.
Yeah, I love that. And I also love about Heather, she also joins as an audience member and provides really good insight and comments and things like that. So we're looking forward to our audience members picking up the pace today and keeping up with what Heather normally does as she is here on stage. Thank you for joining us, Heather. And
Well,
I
thanks for
really
having me.
appreciate I really am going to appreciate your insights that you provide today. And then
Thank
we
you.
have Bryce Crosby. Bryce, do you want to give a little bit more of an introduction of who you are?
Sure, sure. Yeah. Well, first off, thanks for having me join the panel. Glad to be a part of this discussion here today. But yeah, like Sarah said, I'm joined here out of Portland, Oregon. So nice and early here this morning. In yeah, I guess addition to being in sales for Full Sail, I'm wearing the Full Sail shirt today. I'm also a father of two young children. So I got a 4-year-old daughter and a 1-year-old son. So that certainly keeps me busy. So yeah, on the personal side, navigating being a new dad and all the excitements and joy that brings out. So this time of year is also extremely fun with Christmas and all that with young kids. So excited for this weekend to go do some Santa visits. I think we might try it out. So we'll see. It didn't work out so well last year. 3-year-old Mia, she was not quite sure she wanted to sit on Santa's lap. So we'll see how it goes this weekend.
Oh, that is always a fun adventure to see how your child reacts to Santa. The 17-year-old now, when he was younger, he didn't like the bunny. He didn't like Santa. Like he was like, I'm not having any of this type of stuff. Would not get around and would just cry. And so dad would have to hold him as, we were taking the picture. My daughter loves Santa. She just would they'd like touch noses. Like they have like the best photo ever. Like she was just like,
Cute.
so, she loves Santa. And so she was like complete opposite. She was like very trusting. And so are both of your kids the same, or have you seen with your son yet?
We didn't do it with him last year because he was only 6 months old or something at that point. And so yeah, Mia, she was hesitant. She didn't like freak out, but she didn't want to go sit on his lap or anything like that. So we'll see. Jackson, he's a crazy kid, so I'm sure he'll just run right up to him and be no problem. But we'll see.
Especially if you go tell him what you want for Christmas.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. And so I'd love to hear also from the audience what has been your experience with your kids or even with yourself when you were growing up in the holidays, how it is that what is it that you did? And, did you have any experiences like that with Santa or, sometimes you have other experiences. I love just to hear the different experiences that people have throughout the holidays. All right, so let's jump into today's topic. I think we're really going to hit upon a lot of amazing things today to really have people think about the law of compensation in maybe a little bit of a different way. And one of the things that I think is important is that the law of compensation is a neutral cause and effect principle. And what I mean by that is that it's not do this, you get rewarded, do this, you'll be punished. It is, where the reward punishment is really a human-made judgment system. Whereas the law of compensation is you get compensated in proportion to the value, the service, and the integrity you consistently put out. And oftentimes on a timeline that serves your growth, not your impatience. And that's what we're really going to be talking about today related to the law of compensation. We're also going to be talking about how the law of compensation is not necessarily always about money. And we talked about that last week. So we're going to be talking about all of the things that we have seen related to the law of compensation on how it has shown up in our life. And so for me, that really is the first question for the panel is how has the law of compensation shown up in your life? Bryce, would you like to take that first?
Yeah. I mean, man, lots of examples come to mind when that question got brought up, and I think the obvious answer is with my type of role and my type of career with sales that there's a an obvious connection to compensation, right? There's a big chunk of my revenue that's typically tied to, quote unquote, compensating what I sold, right? And so there's an easy connection, I would say, there. But what first actually came to mind when I read that question, where is the law of compensation really showing up? It brought me back to my very first job in high school, where I was working at Subway sandwiches. And I think I was just maybe 16 years old, just had a driver's license, had to commute there. And first job, I think there's, I mean, probably another topic, but there's a lot of kids who don't necessarily want to work, and they kind of, I got to go to work, whatever. For some reason, I had this mindset where I was really excited, and maybe it was the making money part, but it was just putting in this effort. And I quickly, it got noticed by management to give some more responsibilities. Hey, wow, Bryce, like maybe we can give you, you're only 16 years old. You can't be a manager, but maybe you can, have the responsibility to be the night closer, and you can, have some more, just respect, I guess you could say, of autonomy. And throughout that, just again, I think it was through a lot of hard work and just not expecting anything in return. I never asked for raises. I was just, there doing my job. And then all of a sudden, hey, oh, you want to be the night manager where you're responsible for closing the store? Oh, you can kind of pick who you want to work with. Oh, well, awesome. One of my friends wants to work at Subway. Let's get him involved. And so now all of a sudden, I'm working with one of my best friends. We're having like the time of our life. And to me, I was just thinking I was doing my job, like what I was expecting. But all of a sudden, I'm getting this compensation of more freedom and more choices and more
Mhm.
being able to choose who I want to work with. And so I don't think it always has to be tied to the money aspect. Through that, sure, were they giving me a few raises? At the time it was 10 cents here, 10 15 cents there, um but yeah, the real compensation to me was that freedom and the ability to kind of, wow, like there's a lot of trust that they're giving me as the 16, 17-year-old kid to run the store, more or less. So
Yeah, and think about the experience, of doing that and how that then can potentially parlay into the next job of, wow, at this particular age, they were already doing those types of things, so that then sets you up in the next set of jobs and things like that in showing really well how responsible or how much they trusted you, and, it just really ends up telling a further story down the road as you're looking at your next job.
exactly. Yep.
Yeah. Heather, what are your thoughts here? How has the law of compensation shown up in your life?
It's really funny. I've had some similar experiences to Bryce in that I've always, when I get a job, I give it everything I have. But I think for me, I lean a little bit more towards the personal side on how it's shown up. And it's just a matter of kind of giving and interacting without an expectation in return has led me to develop some relationships and friendships over the years that, had there been expectations tied to it, they may not have been as deep and as long lasting as they were.
Mm,
So I think there are, kind of two sides to it, because that's been a huge aspect of my life. Work has been great, like having the ability to have a job I loved and devote a lot of time to it and not expect anything in return. I convinced one of my jobs actually to let me write a history of the museum where I worked, and so thanks to that, I became a published author. And yeah, so I've seen it in both sides.
yeah. I think that it's one of those things that, as you really, continue to show, the things that you really I guess the best way to say it is, as you are really looking at, things in a way of just providing that value or just looking at it as what it is that you how it is you can best serve, that is when a lot of times those things end up really coming back to you, and sometimes in unexpected ways, as well. And so, I do want to note that we have another person on YouTube that is joining us. So welcome. And so, he says Christmas, I celebrate Christmas. And he also says it's not happy holidays, it's Merry Christmas. And so I do want to also respect other people, for me, that also sometimes don't celebrate Christmas. And so welcoming people that have a Jewish background, people that have a Muslim background. So there's all kinds of individuals out there. And so for me, again, this topic is really about how we can give, how we can serve others. And again, we talked about not having expectations. So for me, I'm happy with whatever it is that you want to say in life, because I don't have an expectation of what it is that you are in life. And that's really when we start to serve people in things. So I do want to welcome you. Glad that you are here. And hope you gain some further insights today as we really talk about serving others in life. And so I want to pivot to a different aspect of the law of compensation, and not just how it's shown up in your life, but maybe some of the biggest misunderstandings that people have about the law of compensation. And so, Heather, would you like to start this one? I think backstage you were like, oh, I love this particular question here.
I do. And I think, excuse me, one of the biggest misconceptions about the law of compensation is that it is sort of a tit for tat, or if I do this, I get this. If I don't do this, I don't get this. And that's just not at all what it's about. Sorry, have a sip of tea. As you said, it's neutral.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's very much about what is the best way that I can serve the person in front of me. With our clients, it is not about what can I do for them that's going to make my business better or that's going to make us more money. It's about, okay, how can I help this client further their business and how can I help them be more successful? And I don't have any expectation in return for that. The most important thing is that I'm always keeping their success and their needs in mind and trying to meet those. And whatever I get from it, I get from it. Like whatever comes, comes. But we've been really fortunate that that helps us build incredible relationships that we'll have for years to come.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. It really is sometimes hard in business to think about things in a way that, the reason we're in business a lot of times is to make money. Hopefully, you're also in business because it's something that you also enjoy and you love, because that's really when I think that when we find what we're the best fit for in things, and we really also believe in what it is that we're doing and how it is we're helping people, I think that's when we really are set ourselves up for success in business. And so I love the fact that you're focused on, the client and how is it that you can best serve them. And talking about this particular topic of misunderstandings, biggest misunderstandings, I think that that's one of the things that sometimes people don't really realize is that by really giving and providing that value, that's when you end up getting that. And I think one of the other things from a maybe an expectation perspective is how quickly it comes to you as well. Like people are like, oh, well, I did this, so now I should get this. And so, Bryce, what are other big misunderstandings that you think that people have about the law of compensation?
Yeah, I think a lot. I mean, what you guys just nailed on, but that immediate aspect of things, just the
Mhm.
oh, I'm gonna go above and beyond because I'm gonna get something in return. And it's funny. There's kind of a common interview question of like, how have you gone above and beyond at your point of work? And I see so many times people struggle to answer that question because they do what their job duties are, and the only time that they go outside of those job duties is when, oh, well, you're going to compensate me for going outside of my job duties, right?
Yeah.
And so it's not until you truly are just doing it to help and provide value that you're really going above and beyond, in my opinion, right? And so I think there's that kind of, there's probably more than two types of people, but there's like two on a scale, there's like two types of people to that degree, where some are truly going above and beyond to help out. Maybe they're helping the client, maybe they're helping their company grow, maybe they're helping other individuals at their company to get to the level where they're at.
Yeah.
And then there's others who are like, yeah, I'm going to go above and beyond because there's going to be something coming back to me, right? And so
Mhm.
and so yeah, it's that. I think the misunderstanding is that immediate return, like, okay, I need to do this because I'm looking for something, I'm looking for more money, so what can I do to go find a way to go above and beyond, versus the flip of that, just, hey, I want to go help people, I want to be a good person. Oh, all of a sudden a bonus came to me. Oh, all of a sudden there was a new door that opened up, that the salary was double what I was making before. Like, all these
Yeah.
things just will happen naturally if you truly have that, hey, I want to help people mindset.
Yeah. That helping
Yeah,
people mindset and the service mindset. Were you going to say something, Heather?
I am. I love that you brought up the interview question, Bryce, because that is one of my most hated interview questions. Because what you do to go above and beyond at one job or at one company will likely be completely different than the way that you would go above and beyond for your new employer. And so I think that in many ways, yeah, you can provide a good answer, but in a lot of ways, it can set you up for not the best situation because someone may not understand how it translates.
Mm, yeah. I think about some of the things related to, so being a business owner and also having been an employee and how it is that I approached things whenever I was an employee. I think for me, it has never changed. So whenever I was, and I want to see what you guys also think about this. So no matter what company I was with, really when I started with my professional career, I always had the philosophy of looking at it as if I was a business owner. And then as an owner, I look at it as in a perspective of if I was a client, how would I want to be treated? So I feel like those perspectives are important to look at. And so from an employee perspective, I'm not sure I ever asked for a raise. Whenever I really think
Mm.
back on it, I never had to go to my bosses and go, I think I deserve more money. Now, I had gone to one and I said, I want more responsibility. Here's how I want to take, here's how I want to grow the company. But I never went to anybody and said, I deserve more money. And I'm curious what you guys think because we've sort of gone to a philosophy of everybody's, asking, well, I deserve more, I deserve more, I deserve more. If you don't ask for it, you won't get it. I agree that if you don't ask, you don't get it. What's the harm of saying no? I guess I also look at I never really had to do that because I just continued to provide value and people saw me as value. And so they're like, I want to keep this person. So I'm curious, with the law of compensation, for me, it paid off because I never asked for it. I never expected. I just continued to provide value and those things then found me. So I'm curious, but the mindset today is you need to ask, continue to ask, ask, ask. So I'm curious if do we think that that's helping or hindering people
Hmm.
with what it is that with that type of philosophy?
If I could jump in quickly, my first thought is a little bit of both. I mean,
Mhm.
I think there's certain situations and certain organizations that it's critical to ask, because sometimes these large organizations, you might not get noticed. You might be doing as much as possible, and for whatever reason you might not get noticed to the degree that you need to
Yeah,
get to that next level. And so it's critical to be like, hey, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm doing. But on the very same breath, people are asked, in my opinion, people might be asking too early and too often, where they really need to earn that ask, right? And it's not like,
yeah,
hey, I deserve this, I deserve this, I deserve this, but what can you do? What have I been doing? And then it's kind of that self-realization. Let's check where I'm at. Am I in the right organization that is supporting this growth, that's supporting this compensation? Because maybe it's, to the point of, hey, it's not going to come immediately, But after a while, if you're putting in all these efforts and you're not getting anything in return, maybe it's time to self-reflect, and you're not with the organization, and that is helping you grow.
Yeah.
And then so it's time to so it might be time to pivot. But in a
Mhm.
lot of situations, no, I think what you put out there, you're putting that value out there, you're going to get recognized, and people are going to see that, and I think that compensation will come.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That is almost exactly what I was going to say is it really depends on the situation, the organization. And if you are constantly, not constantly, but if at every annual review you're saying, okay, here are the things that I've done this year, can we talk about a compensation increase? And the answer is always no. And, or they don't even offer for a couple of years and you have to constantly ask, definitely ask yourself, am I in the right place
Mhm.
where this is being supported and I can grow, or do I need to find a different environment?
Yeah. And I'll give you an example of this. So I had an individual that I don't manage within our own company that came to me and said, and had the strength to to ask me about money, that they felt like they deserved a raise and things like that. And so what I ended up guiding this person to do is I said, I'm not your manager. I don't have, this isn't my decision. So what I can offer you is, if I was your manager, what I would suggest, what I tend to look for is people that come to me and say, hey, here's all the things that I have been doing. What else is it that you're really wanting from a value perspective? How else can I contribute, to get to that next level? So for me, it's, and that's what, I've always focused on, is how else can I help? How else can I serve? But it's then building that with them from a one-on-one perspective on saying, okay, I'm willing to take on more. I'm willing to do this. That's when I think it then comes just naturally. When it doesn't, I agree 100% with you guys. It's then going, it's just like with one of the companies. I was like, I'm willing to do this. This is how I see we can grow. Are we in agreement? And the guy was like, no, I just want you to be a proposal manager. And I was like, okay, thank you. And he was like, we're on the same page. And I'm like, yep, I understand what it is that, you're wanting. For me, that was, you're not wanting me to grow. I'm in agreement that we both understand each other. I'm not in agreement that that's where I want to be. And so it's then taking that action of going, well, I want something different, and then moving on. When people are telling you this is what you're wanting, the answer is either going to be, yes, we can do that. Let's figure out a plan. Or, I'm sorry, we're not going to be able to do that. And then ultimately it's up to me to then find, what it is that I need. Understanding sometimes we outgrow the company we're with as well. That's also maybe
Yeah.
the universe and the law of compensation saying you're ready for that next level too. Yeah.
Well, and I think those signals can come in different ways, because I was in a position once where the person who was my direct report believed I deserved it and advocated for me to get it, and then they were told no.
Yeah.
And, there can be situations like that, especially in larger companies, where that's when you really have to start asking, like, okay, if the person above me who's in a management role can't even advocate for this, how's it ever going to happen?
Mm-hmm.
And not
Agree.
because they weren't capable, but because upper management was like, no.
Yeah. And so, well, let's think about that. So sometimes it requires a little bit of patience for that payoff, and sometimes it does require that decisive change where you need to move. You need to make the right move to realign. And so let's just take that particular situation. What were maybe the options that were available to you in that type of situation that you could have done? Hindsight, is it, instead of just moving, what were maybe some of the other options that were available to you? I'm
You
curious.
mean instead of moving to another company?
Yeah. Mhm.
Oh, honestly, unfortunately, in that position, there were no options. It was an incredibly small department. There were only two of us. We had a very specific role
Yeah.
within the organization. And, I came from the nonprofit world, and this was my first foray into for-profit work. And it was still in sort of a nonprofit area. It was around
Mm,
volunteerism and things like that. And so I think genuinely the leadership just wasn't willing at that time to make that investment. In fact,
mm.
um, both of us in that area ended up moving on at different times. And I think it was actually we're both now running our own businesses. So I think it was probably the best move was to leave.
Yeah. I'm curious, do you think that you could have gone to the higher ups yourself, and had that conversation? And do you think it would have resulted in any different type of conversation?
Honestly, I think that would probably have resulted in termination, going
Really?
above your
Okay.
manager. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And
Can't say that for sure because I didn't try it, but
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Bryce, what are your thoughts? So maybe a story where patience paid off, or one where decisive change was the right move to realign.
Yeah, I mean, one story that kind of comes to mind is more of going in line with what we're just talking about with different organizations where, yeah, maybe there's some kind of pressure from the top down to, hey, you need to make this sale today, all right? We have
Yeah.
numbers to hit. We have to hit these numbers. So there's a lot of urgency from kind of higher ups and some pressure to, oh wow, I need to make this happen versus sometimes what the right thing to do, it's working with the client, hey, they're not ready, right? And so
Yeah.
there's you alluded to it earlier, there's sometimes a win-win situation where we can find, hey, okay, I understand you guys have some numbers to hit, there is alignment, like maybe we can find something to not pressure them, but to make this deal happen sooner rather than later. But other times that patience is going to be so much better suited for the individual, right? Let's just say in
Mhm.
this example, me as the sales rep versus the larger organization. So yes, there's all these pressures, and yeah, you have to hit these numbers, you have to hit these goals. But what is the right thing to do? Potentially is wait and be
Mm,
patient with this particular sale. And so it's a fine balance because if you're not at the right organization, that could cause termination. That could cause some sort of hard conversation. But with the right organization, with the right trust and that right combination, well, now all of a sudden that patience likely is going to pay off in tenfold, like you've mentioned, right? I've had
mhm.
so many examples where at the end of the year, it's December, we got to get this sale done. Okay, well, in my mind, what's the difference between making it done in December versus January? It's just a matter of a month. What is this arbitrary 2025 to 2026 cutover? It's just
Yeah.
a date on a calendar. And so if it's really not in alignment with the client, like where is that end result going to be? And so one situation that
Mm,
came to mind where it did get delayed into the following year, well, now all of a sudden that sale, it ended up being twice as big as it would have been in December because we were able to let some things play out that allowed them to they were seeing some growth, they were seeing some different things happen on their side. And so at the end of the day, now this organization's like, oh wow, I'm glad you waited. And so it's like, okay, well, that's where patience will pay off. And
mhm.
sometimes those larger organizations, for better or for worse, might not be able to have the patience or might not be able to allow that sales rep to have the patience in this example.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I look within just the industry just as a whole from a software perspective, and I'm curious whether this is true in the construction side or in your side as well, Heather. But for us on the software side of the house, I see multiple organizations, really focusing on that year end or quarter end or things like that, where I've even seen organizations that we sort of work with, because of our connectors, that we would be working with particular salespeople, on helping to connect, and they were like, "We need your help. We need you to help sell this for us, because if I don't sell this, I'm going to get fired." And I'm thinking to myself, wow, like, how, that is like the worst energy to be working in is that fear based approach. And so I'm curious with the construction industry and what it is that you deal with. Do you have those types of pressures, or have you seen those with other organizations where they have that type of demand based on a timeline as well?
It's interesting. Yes and no. It works a little bit differently in the construction world, but one of the big things that's incredibly important to the success of a business in our world is backlog. And so essentially, how many jobs do you have lined up that are sort of domino start dates
Hmm.
so that when your crew finishes job 2, they can go on to job 3. And when the crew on job 4 finishes, they hop to job 6. And so you don't have a gap between a crew finishing a job before them starting another job, because then you're paying them their salary, but you're not getting any revenue or profit from it. And so, yes, some year-end deadlines are important, but it's really more about looking 3, 6, 9 months out to make sure that you have bid enough work to win what you need to be able to keep your crews busy and money coming in the door.
Yeah, that pipeline is very important, I think, in many project-based firms, because we consider
Mhm.
ourselves project-based as well, even though we're also have a component of software. We're also implementations, and which is project-based as well. So I definitely understand that backlog of what do you have coming in the pipeline as well. Um,
Mhm.
I I think about corporations just overall, and it feels like the bigger the corporations get, the more that they have to answer to people that are not in the best interest of the company, and to really why it is that they're in business. I'm curious what your thoughts
Mhm.
are on, I'm trying to think of a larger corporation that has continued to really look at like what's in the best interests of clients. And I was just thinking about Costco, for example. I was just talking with someone, they were on their way to Costco and they were like, oh, as an executive member, they actually opened up between 9 and 10 for us now to be able to go in without like that hustle and bustle where we're able to go in. And to me, I was like, oh, well, that's thinking about the client. And it probably, I don't, they're like also saying, okay, well, we're going to have individual clients that are patrons are not going to be allowed to come in. So they're potentially impacting, or they could impact their business, but they're looking at the return on, we're wanting to provide value. You're willing to spend extra money. So we also want to make sure that you're getting that extra value as well. But I just wonder how many corporations are constantly looking at their board, making sure that they're getting the money that they expect, or that president or CEO, they're looking out for themselves versus, for me, the more that I look at my employees, the more I look at my clients, I'm not even really having to worry necessarily about the backlog or, a lot of times about the sales, because those things just tend to come. And so I'm curious what you guys think about that, and how maybe larger corporations could potentially get more benefit or get more returns, if they were to be more generous with their employees and their clients.
Mhm. If I can go first on that one, I think in the construction world, if some of the larger companies would have a little bit more thought into what benefits their employees, they would have less turnover
Hmm.
and they would have less burnout. And there's a lot of turnover in the construction industry from burnout. And so if they would address that situation and sort of think more about what is best for their employees, I think they would spend less money on
Hmm.
turnover because they'd have employees who are willing to stay longer because they're not so burnt out that they can't imagine coming to work on Monday.
Hmm.
That's exactly where my mindset went to, is that turnover and burnout. When I think about salespeople at larger organizations like that, where they just have a number to hit, and then all of a sudden they're in desperation selling mode because I'm going to lose my job if I don't hit this. Well, that turnover, I mean, from a business owner perspective, you got to think about, well, how much time and effort is it going to cost to train someone else new versus keeping them happy and being okay with not hitting their numbers this year, and having, that type of culture drop down because maybe they're client focused, right? And just to the point of Costco, yeah, for that hour, sure, could you have higher revenues if you open the doors to everybody, and let the floodgates open up to the entire, Costco universe? Well, sure, but they're taking that hit of a potential margin, knowing that the benefits are going to, add to the patrons, the customers, but also to the employees too, right? As they're starting their day, they're not just getting bombarded with the Black Friday rush of people knocking them over. They're getting to start their day a little bit in an easier route, and all these things I think will play into that longevity of the employee to not have that turnover, not have that burnout, and there's a big cost to that when it comes
Mhm.
to organizations training and getting new people up to speed.
Yeah, and whenever I think about the construction industry, it's not just about turnover, it's also about quality of life. Like they are, I think, the second highest in suicide rates, if not the highest. I feel like mining and construction sort of go back and forth, and it's crazy the quality of life that, if they really looked at those types of things and really spent some time figuring out how can I make the quality of life better for our employees, because we're losing people with valuable trade knowledge in a lot of ways to suicide, and then just the overall turnover, like you talked about. So if people really looked at the value that they're bringing, I think it's important that as employees, we look at the value we're bringing. It's
Mhm.
also very important that corporations are looking at the value that they're bringing to their clients and to their employees. And that's where I think that they will then see those returns. They may not be that immediate, like, hey, I need that sale this quarter. But I can tell you from when I started and I had my first salesperson, because I was the person doing sales, and I would turn away sales. I'd be like, you're not really a good fit for us. And they were just like blown away that I was telling them, I didn't want to sell them something. And so the more I focused on that, so I want to sort of parlay into that I feel like it's also the trust that you build with that when you're willing to tell people we're not a good fit, or I don't think that you're right, for this, or I want to talk about, like, what is it that you have seen in, like, the value that comes from patience and trust that later has come to you as well. Bryce, do you want to start with that one?
Yeah, I mean, I think just going off of not selling them something that they don't need builds a ton of trust and a ton of long-term relationship, which for the right company and the right organization will bring in referrals, tenfold, right? And so if you can get a referenceable client, that referenceable client is worth a lot more than just a one-off client that's potentially going to leave because you sold them a wrong product, right? Yeah,
Hmm.
that was great. You got them in the door, but now they're gone in a year or two because they didn't really need that product. They didn't really need that service. And so if you can tell somebody, no, hey, you don't actually need this. Well, one, there's the kind of reverse psychology aspect of it that they're like, well, actually, no, I do want this. Um, but two, that'll build so much trust that they'll go tell their friends, hey, I didn't actually need this product, but I'm, in this conversation that you had with me, it sounds like you might actually be a good fit. Let me get you in touch with Bryce and you can, talk to him. Right. So I've had so many times where actually I'm working with someone right now that they did not buy the software, and it's because it wasn't a good fit for that company, but they saw a ton of value in the way that I approached the situation, the way I worked with them, And now they just called me a week ago saying, hey, I have 3 other companies that I think might be a good fit for this product. I want to get in touch. I want to get them in touch with you. And I'm like, that's amazing. Like, I would not have had any interaction with those 3 companies, nor known who they were, if I wouldn't have told this person, hey, no, I don't think you should buy this product, right? And so that relationship has in turn brought in more references and more potential sales. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's just going back to doing the right thing versus the quick win.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
I also had a situation where we were working with an individual and we were just struggling, like everything he wanted, we just weren't able to provide to him. And it was just like a struggle. And it was almost like the person just wanted to argue with us, honestly, in a lot of ways. And
Mhm.
I just went back to him and I was like, look, this isn't working. Like this, we're not a good fit. I'm going to return all your money to you. And what happened? That person was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, no. And all of a sudden, their personality completely changed because I was just like, this is not working for us. Like, we're not seeing value. We're not providing you value. We're willing, we've spent all this time and effort with you, but we're willing to just give you your money back. That ended up changing him and changing how it is that he interacted with us because we were just willing to say, let's cut ties because we're not seeing that we're going to be successful with you. And we're frustrated as well. And then all of a sudden, it this person ended up becoming a referral like down the road, and all of a sudden he started working with us differently. And so it was just an amazing experience just to really be willing to say, we're willing to go and have spent all this effort and give you money back because we saw that the value wasn't there. So I think it can be both ways, as well as sometimes also willing to in some ways set those boundaries, but it's really doing it based on that value as well. What are your thoughts
Well,
on this topic, Heather?
I was going to say, it's also incredible how quickly an attitude can change when someone realizes you're not out for their money,
Mhm.
Hmm.
that you actually have an interest in what is best for them.
Yeah.
And yeah, I couldn't agree more with both of you. We take the time to interview potential clients. We learn what their business is. We learn what they need, like the service that they're looking for. And if we're not a good fit, we tell them right up front. And we even had one client who they were in a different area. It was not our usual niche. And we said, you know what, let's give this a try. Let's do a trial job
Yeah.
and see how it goes. See if we can, how fast the learning curve is going to be. And within a week, we said, we can't learn this niche as quickly as we need to provide the value they need. So we immediately picked up the phone, told them that, didn't charge them a dime,
Yeah.
and said, we really hope you find somebody. If we know anybody, we'll send them your way. And we ended up sending someone their way that they interviewed to potentially help them out. So it's one of those situations where if we can give them value and help them in a way other than us providing a service and getting paid for it, that's
Yeah.
still valuable.
Mhm.
Because like Bryce said, like that person is now going to go and tell people, wow, like these guys really actually care and they're not just after your money. It's worth calling them because they'll be honest with you.
Yeah, I love that. I do want to talk a little bit about, because you hit upon it, some of the other we always focus on compensation on money, but one of the things that I think is also important is like network and resources and things like that. So, as an example, I know that for me, I've mentored different individuals. I don't have anything in return in that I'm providing my time, things like that. But then the times that I've also needed someone, all of a sudden I have someone that is doing things at no cost to me, helping to mentor me on things as well. And so I've seen it shown up. Like what I was doing, all of a sudden I get someone as well that is willing to do that. Have you guys had anything that is like not compensation wise, but has been like resources like connecting you or things that are more like about learning or skills or things like that?
Yeah, I have. I don't know, Heather, if you wanna start, it sounds like you might have something too. But
I was going to say, go for it. I can piggyback later.
yeah, so I mean, I don't know if this exactly hits on the question that you're saying, Sarah, but what came to mind there is I've done quite a bit of coaching throughout my career, and I was a snowboard coach for quite a while. I've done some other coaching when it comes to I love sports, so a lot of sports types of coaching. But it's kind of like the giving back mentality because that was given to me. I've had some great mentors, I've had some great coaches, and so it's kind of feeling like, oh, I want to give that back to others, right? And do that as well. But at the same time, um, it kind of comes back to me as well. So to your point, like it's not necessarily the exact people that I'm helping that will I'll see a return on, but it's kind of that full circle mentality of when I'm putting out, when I'm putting out help, and if I'm giving assistance or coaching or that free type of mindset, well, now all of a sudden, without expectations, I'm looking to learn something new, and all of a sudden, someone's willing to lend a hand out, right? And so I think it's just kind of that, yeah, it's just kind of that full circle mentality for me.
Yeah, and I would agree. One of the things that I found incredibly interesting was shortly before we started Archer, Jake connected with someone who was doing a similar business model to us, but in a different field. And this person kind of acted as a mentor and allowed Jake to ask a ton of questions. And I think that's part of what helped give him confidence for us to finally take the leap on this when I really kind of kicked into pushing it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and different things like that have happened kind of throughout both of our lives, for exactly as Bryce was saying, you, like Jake would mentor other people in his companies. And I mentored some interns at former jobs and things like that. And then at a time when we needed kind of some guidance or some input or some skill that we needed to learn, someone has shown up that has provided it. And I think that's probably the one that comes to mind first because it showed us, oh yeah, you can do this. I'm successful at it, and I think you can be too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love that. Whenever I think about all of the different things, even within my life, that the more you do whatever it is, the more you end up getting back. And that's really what this law is about, is that, a lot of times I will help people out. So whenever I loan money, I don't loan money. I give, with friends and family, it's like, they're like, oh, can I borrow, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, I don't do that. And I think that it's also making sure that a part of this law, it's also making sure that from your heart, you're giving it, freely. And I think that without expectation, but freely as well, that it aligns with you as well. Because when you do it in, like, oh, I feel almost obligated or guilted or things like that, that's when a lot of times we then are not in alignment with this particular law as well. So I also wanted to sort of emphasize that and see if you guys had thoughts about, like, when you have given and you felt almost obligated to give, versus when you have given freely, without expectations. What have you seen as a result with those two different types of things?
Mhm.
Hmm, it's a
I
tough one.
think I think if you give with a feeling of obligation,
Hmm.
number one, you're not exactly giving freely, and so you may very well not give. I don't want to say as much because that's not what it's about, but you may not give in as positive a way.
Hmm.
And when you're not giving in a positive way, whoever is receiving knows. Like
Mm,
you really can tell. And when you're giving completely freely and you have no expectations, it's more joyful. And I feel like the person on the other end can feel that as well.
yeah.
Yeah, I feel like when you're giving freely, I mean it just comes out naturally. I've had some recent, actually just yesterday at the grocery store. I was just buying something, and I was overhearing someone asking like 3 different workers, like, "Hey, where's this? Where's this? Where's this?" And they're all like, I don't know." And she's just like, "You guys work here? What the heck's going on?" Like, I'm so frustrated. And all I did was, because I had nothing else to do, I just kind of turned my head around, and I was like, "Oh, I think I overheard she needed pickles. Is that?" I was like, "Oh, is that what it is that you're looking for?" She's like, "Oh my gosh, you're my hero." And I was like, really? Like, I didn't really do that much, right? And so it was just me freely trying to help out, right? Not expecting anything in return. And you can tell by her reaction of how, how much that meant. And it's just like, versus if I was like, "Oh, I'm only gonna tell her if she's gonna give me $1 or so." Yeah, I don't know, I'm just making something up, but it would come across so disgenuine, and I would not expect that type of answer, or it wouldn't hit me the way it hit me, like, wow, I really just helped somebody out, or that I really just, maybe they were in a rush. I don't know why I was their hero, but all of a sudden they felt the need to say that, and it made me feel really good. um and I just don't think you get that type of energy if you're forcing that type of interaction.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that, because it can simply be also, what it is you're giving out could be a smile. It could be complimenting people. It can be those types of things that then, when you're down or you're, in a bad place or things like that, then you're also getting that back as well. So it's not just about skills. It's not just about, mentoring and money and those types of things. It's also like those other things that we sometimes take for granted as well.
Yeah, and I think like that just made me think of the ripple effect, because that was something so small to you, Bryce, but we have no idea what was going on in her day.
Yeah.
And you may have just restored a little bit of her faith in humanity, so that when she has the opportunity to do something like that, she remembers and goes, "Oh, this guy helped me out in the grocery store. I need to help this person out because like I know how good that made me feel."
Yeah.
And then every person, like you impacted her, she impacts someone else, and it just keeps going. And who knows how many small, nice things are going to happen to strangers because you helped her find pickles.
100%. No, I totally agree with that karma aspect of it. The return might not be to me, right?
Mm.
The compensation return might not be to me. It might be to someone else, but I'm putting that good energy out in the world so that someone is going to be compensated, whether that's with a smile or with a free gift, whatever that might be. I think that, yeah, it's allowing someone else to now give forward.
I think you just hit upon something that's also important, is that it doesn't always come back to you. It might be meant for someone else. Like what it is you did is now, as she's saying, the ripple effect of, to others that then need it as well. So I love that. I want to pull up, this is from Megan. So alignment is key and timing is everything. The difference in which year you do something can be huge. The difference in when you choose to start out can be massive in terms of energy working with you or against you. Picture yourself trying to swim upstream while the tide is going out. You have two massive forces working against you, the river flow and the tide flow, making you have to work so much harder to get where you want to go. Cosmic timing and alignment is a passion and a shamanic. I'm not sure. I looked to see if I could see the rest. Let me see. Here we go. Let's see. Shamanic specialty of mine. So you're inspiring a teaching offering of my own. Thank you. She says you're beautiful. And then J. Rowe also added, I've always had the sales approach that everyone wants just two things: ROI and peace of mind. If you do not listen intently and build the trust while providing those two things, retention is at risk. And she said, honestly, it's not just sales with those two things, but in life, in any relationship, business, romantic, family, etc. And so I want to talk a little bit about the daily behaviors. So a sort of a final question, and then we'll get into final thoughts. But what daily behaviors do you feel like create that reliable compensation, over months and years? What have you found the most in the types of behaviors that you illustrate that then create that reliable compensation?
You want me to take this one first, Bryce?
Sure. Yeah, go for it, Heather.
Okay, cool. So I think honestly, being kind,
Mm,
and it sounds simple, but it's not always simple. That encompasses so much. And for me, it is making it a part of how my brain works to think about that person in the grocery store who was snippy with me may just be having a bad day. And I don't need to react to them in the same way that they acted towards me, because if I am kind in return, maybe that'll help them feel better. And the next person they deal with will get a better attitude.
mm,
And like that's kind of a small example back to the pickle sort of thing, but just being intentional about considering others and my effect on them. And I guess essentially it really does boil down to what you've said. What value am I bringing even in the smallest interactions?
mm-hmm. I love that. Bryce, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I agree with it's kind of the small things really add up, and for me, I think it's taking the time to slow down and knowing that in the business setting, it's a lot of times go go go, right? And everybody is a human being at the end of the day, right? And so I think working with a team, teams, individuals, making them know that, hey, you are a person first and foremost, and your feelings matter, and taking the time to slow down to understand how they're doing, and not just like, hey, I need this, I need this, I need this. I think that those small little interactions go a long way to doing what we've already talked about, of building that trust, leading with value, and showcasing that you care. And so I think just a lot of those, just, hey, let's take the time to ask how your weekend was before we get into what deals are you going to close today. Like, let's take a little step on the human side, the human interaction side, before we just jump right into the deep end. I think can go a long ways.
Yeah. So J-Ro agrees. Yes, being kind, be genuine. Everyone is dealing with a battle we know nothing about. A simple smile to a stranger can change everything for that person's day or life. For me, I think, I guess my philosophy has always been be willing to help and also understand where it is that I can help and when it is that I also need to pull back to allow people to go through the challenges that they might need to go, even though I can help them as well. So for me, it's been balancing the two, because I want to help. I want, I'm like, oh, I'm a problem solver. I can, jump in, I can help this person. When it also goes to what you're talking about, Bryce, it's also understanding when to step back and when to take that pause and go, okay, would this actually help the person, or would it actually help them more by them learning the lesson? And so for me, it has been that pause before just immediately helping and understanding, like, how can I truly best serve? How can I truly help? But I've always had that helping, attitude with everything that I do, that I think has always helped bring me to the compensation of whatever it is. So whether it's, providing people a referral, oh, I know someone, connecting them, or, oh, I can mentor you, I can help you, or I can give you money, or, like all of those different types of things, or I have a skill set from a solutions perspective, and being able to, help connect them to the right thing or find the right solution. For me, that's me, that's where I think my strength is. And I think for everyone, it is figuring out what your strength is. And so, Heather, you talked about, yours is kindness, so being able to provide, that type of service to them, of just having someone that is that providing them that smile, or help, being able to just serve them in a way of just being kind even when they're not kind. And Bryce, you're talking about connection. So being able to connect with people in a deeper way, or maybe even just, asking them, being, providing compassion, for example. So I think it's different for everyone. And I'm curious what you guys think about that as well, that I think you have to find what your compensation is, what your language is, almost like our love language. What is our language of compensation that serves us best? What do you guys think about that?
I agree 100%. I mean, I don't think it's a blanket, for everybody, and it just goes back to the authenticity aspect of it, where it's not going to showcase as genuine if it's not truly yourself, right? You're lending this hand that's not really you doing it. It's gonna seem a little bit suspicious, like what's going on here, versus if it's truly coming from the heart, it's gonna showcase just that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I also think it's important that you pointed out that we do all have our own language, because just like everything else in the world, if we all had the same one, number one, not all the problems would be addressed. Number two, not everybody would feel seen. And number three, the world would be a very boring place. So if one person interacted with you, with Bryce, and with me, we would each offer our own variety of, for the law of compensation, but like Bryce's connection, I'm kind, you're a helper. Like they get different things from each of us. And if they are fortunate enough to interact with enough people who have that sort of genuine um, desire to be positive, I mean, gosh, imagine if you encountered five people who all they wanted to do was like be positive and do something to help you, or that lifted your spirits every day. How awesome would that be?
That'd be awesome. It'd be an amazing day. It'd be,
Hmm.
exactly what the world
Hmm.
needs.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So I want to, before I get into final thoughts, I want to be able to ask you guys, how do people get in touch with you? What's the best way for people to connect with you? Heather, what way can they connect with you?
So the two best ways to connect with me are my LinkedIn profile. Archer also has a LinkedIn profile, or our website, which is www.archerestimation.com.
Perfect. And Bryce, what about you?
Yeah, the best way would be on LinkedIn. I'm fairly active on LinkedIn, so would love anybody to send me a connection there, and yeah, maybe we can drop the link here in the chat, or I'll comment it later or something like that. But you can search it by my name, Bryce Crosby.
Perfect. Well, reach out to both of these individuals. I'm so glad I was able to bring both of you on for this particular topic of law of compensation. We have one final episode. It'll be the final of the year of not only this particular law, but of all the laws. And so I will be having Julie Powers join me next week. So I want to make sure that you come back. It'll be the last one of the year and the last one overall for this law of compensation. I still have not figured out exactly what I'm doing next year. So I'm still pondering that. I wait for like that epiphany of like, yes, this is what you're supposed to be doing. So I'm still waiting for that. So I haven't decided what it is, how often, what it is I'm going to do it, if I'm going to do it. Like all of those things right now are up in the air. So I'd love to hear back from you on your thoughts. How am I providing value to you? And that really goes into this. Like, I want to make sure that what it is that I'm doing is value. And so I want to understand, that from you. So if you could provide to me how it is that these episodes have been valuable to you, and how it is that I can continue to serve, that would help me to understand, I guess, maybe for next year. So I want to start end things with final thoughts. So when you think about the law of compensation, when you came in, before we started talking about this, what were maybe some of the thoughts you had about the law of compensation, and how has it potentially changed through this conversation that you want to sort of leave with people on final thoughts on the law of compensation? And so anyone want to start first?
Sure. I think that, well, for one, this has been a great conversation. So again, thanks for allowing me to participate. I feel like I've learned a lot about the law of compensation from today and from the last episode. Not actually knowing what the law was going into it, thinking, hey, it's a lot about money compensation, when really there's so many aspects of compensation, and we've talked about a lot of them today. And one that I don't necessarily know if we've honed in on too much is like a time compensation, where the freedom aspects of things, sometimes. So for me, having two young kids, being able to go to a Christmas recital that my daughter has next week, and having that type of compensation, knowing that, hey, I'm putting in a lot of value, a lot of efforts, and then that compensation comes back to me in the form of some free time, or ability to go do that. So I think compensation comes in so many different ways and forms, and at the end of the day, it's controlling what you can control, and putting that output into the world, to not expect something in return, but knowing that those returns will come.
I think that's a great way to think about the law of compensation, as well as that additional way that we can get things. It's also time with our family. It's also having that extra time to maybe even spend with ourselves, and having that time to decompress as well. So I love that.
I think final thoughts for me are, I'm really fortunate I was aware of the law of compensation before this conversation, and have been for a few years now. And I really have made an effort, kind of like that whole be kind thing. And I think
Mhm.
another thing that ties into compensation that we didn't touch on yet is, a lot of us have issues with negative self-talk.
Mm.
We say
Mhm.
some really nasty things to ourselves. We are our own worst critic. And
Yeah.
I think one of the ways that I was really able to begin to see the results of the law of compensation in my life was, I purposefully got rid of the negative self talk, thought about how many people had those things going through their head every day. And maybe that's why, they weren't as nice as they could be. Or, I think if we tell ourselves that we don't deserve something, or that we're not good enough for something, then we're not ever going to get it, because so much of the law of compensation is, like we've talked about, a positive attitude, freely giving.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I think that would be my final thought, is like, for all of us to consistently look at, is there anything going on within me that I need to treat myself more kindly about, so that I can then, the law of compensation will work even more in my life.
Yeah. I love, Heather, that you are touching upon something that will be the next episode. We didn't even plan this, but the next episode is exactly what it's going to focus on, is the fact of, one of the things that I've learned a part of the return is that you can think something negative in your mind, but the moment you speak it, it adds power and adds fuel to whatever that is. So if you think something negative in your mind, by saying something positive, you do that 10 times whatever the positive is. So it overcomes the thought. And then from a negative perspective, so if you think something negative and say something negative, what they've found is it's 40 times more likely to happen from that negative perspective. So that's exactly what we're going to be talking about next week with Julie Powers, is talking about our mindset and how it is that we really impact what it is that's coming back to us as well. And one of the things that I'll leave you with is that I was talking with my daughter about this, and we were talking about when she was younger in gymnastics, and she was doing gymnastics, and she said, I can't do that. And they ended up making not only her, but everyone else do burpees. So anybody that in the class that said, I can't, everyone in the class, because it was to teach them, maybe they're willing to say it about themselves and deal with the punishment, but they weren't willing to deal with punishing everyone else, in that way. And so they
Mhm.
taught them to get out of that negative mindset, because if you don't think you can do something, and that's what I tell my daughter, if you say you can't, you can't. And so it's thinking about that return of compensation as well. And so we'll get into that further next week. So I love that you ended with that thought. So thank you for that. And so thank you both for today's conversation. I just love all of the different paths that we took and all the different things that we talked about today to really dive into the law of compensation and how we can really impact it by really serving others and providing that value, as well as then thinking about the things that we're doing in what that return might be, but not having expectations, and allowing that universe to come back and say, all right, you're ready, from a lesson perspective or whatever, now it's time. So also having that patience. So thank you both for joining us today. And I also want to just thank our audience for the interaction. You allow us to be able to just think about different things. We just love that, people are gaining information and knowledge, and also seeing the value in each of these laws as well. So thank you for providing that insight. And so, everyone, be sure to check back next week for the final episode. And again, thank you, Heather. Thank you, Bryce.
Thank you for
Thank you.
having us.